Quick advice for parents dealing with troubled teens. Watch this video to learn how to deal with your troubled teenager and help him or her transition comfortably and happily into adulthood while quickly coping with the depression, anxiety, alcohol, drugs, or whatever problems he or she might be facing at the moment. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous, and if you are doing as fantastic as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. Today we have an important topic. It is a complex and deep topic, but it is an important one that we need to talk about, right? And it is, it will cover some tips for parents and adults in general who are dealing with troubled teens. Now, before we even get into nitty gritty, let's first understand why teens act in a certain way. Now, you have to understand, a teen's brain is in development, right? So this brain, this nascent or this dynamic brain processes information differently than a mature adult's brain. As a matter of fact, research has shown that the frontal cortex, that is the part of the brain used to manage emotions, reason, make decisions, and control inhibitions, is restructured during the teenage years, forming new synapses at an incredible rate. While the whole brain does not reach full maturity until about the mid-20s. So you have to understand, so from 15 years of age to 25 years of age, your teen is still under development. I'm talking mentally, right? Now, he or she may be taller and seem mature in some respects, but this is still a child who is simply unable to think things through on an adult level, right? Now, besides the neural metamorphosis, you also have hormones that are produced during during adolescence that further complicate things, right? Now, I'm not saying here is that those biological and physiological variations excuse teens' poor behavior or absolve them from accountability for their action, right? But what I'm trying to say here is that those variances, those physiological metamorphoses may help explain why teenagers behave so impulsively or sometimes frustrate parents and teachers with their poor decisions, right? I'm not, and sometimes they're rebellious, they are socially anxious, they isolate themselves. But you have to understand teen development so you can find ways to stay connected to your teen and overcome problems together. All right. Now, one thing that you have to understand here also is that teens read emotions differently, right? So, adults are different from teens in their ability to read and understand emotions in the face of others, right? So as I said earlier, adults will use the prefrontal cortex to read emotional cues, but teenagers, research has shown, rely on the amygdala, right? The part of the brain that's responsible for emotional reactions. Think about it. So they use the part of the brain responsible for emotional reactions to read and understand emotions, right? So often what happens is that teens often misread facial expressions when shown pictures of adult faces expressing different emotions. All right. So they might interpret them as being angry or happy when in fact they're not, right? So now, once you understand why teens act in a certain way, let's now delve into the moment when standard teen behavior turns into troubled teen behavior. All right. So if you start having things like depression, anxiety, eating disorder, the teen is getting to troubled teen territory. If you have, a teen that repeatedly, and this word is important, repeatedly practices at-risk behaviors such as criminal acts, shoplifting, self-harming, violence, skipping school, sex, drug use. All those things, again, are red flags for troubled teen behavior. Now, If you have a teen, for instance, right, who is constantly changing his or her appearance, right, constantly escalating arguments, getting into fights, or run-ins with the law, those are red flags. If you have rapid changes in personality, anxiety, persistent sadness, falling grades, bullying, or any emotional health issue, again, those are red flags for a troubled teen. Now, please don't take this lightly, especially because those little things, those little behaviors might gradually become something even fatal. I'm talking suicide here, right? So if a teen is exhibiting, for instance, experimentation with alcohol and drugs, banned substances, you want to take care of that. You want to really start thinking about either dealing with the issue normally. Now, a lot of teenagers, if not most teenagers in the United States, will try marijuana at one point in their life, right? Which is why parents need to start a conversation early with their children about those substances, right? So talk to your kids frankly and openly about alcohol and drugs so that they understand things even before they start using them. All right. Now, another thing here you have to understand is that, if a teen suddenly changes his or her peer group, there is something happening here, right? In other words, it means that they're not comfortable with their peer group anymore. They get peer pressure, bullying, right? And they might lie to sort of hide the reasons why they changed the peer group. So all of those things have to be taken into account. Now, remember, you may not be an expert on this, so don't be uncomfortable reaching out to an expert, right? I understand your child or your teen is, situation is a family problem, but there comes a time where you have to make a determination that, hey, listen, this is going too far. I need to enlist the help of a therapist, a mental health professional, a counselor, a doctor, a community member to help find appropriate treatment. If you are in a religious congregation, reach out to the elders of the congregation, or reach out to other family members who are more, whom the teen finds more amenable, quote unquote, or more, nicer, and engage those persons. The bottom line is you want to stem the progress of that troubled behavior ASAP. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Q. We're still talking to parents and adults in general dealing with troubled teens. Now, if you love the content of this, if you love the quality and the clarity of the content, please consider subscribing to our channel and turn on the notification bell. We drop this kind of shows every single day, and we really, would love to grow our community. And comment below, also share and like. Now, dealing effectively with troubled teens. Here are the tips that I promised you during this show. Now, number one, take care of yourself. Very important. In the midst of the storm, while your teen is experimenting things, is just exploding on you, take care of yourself. It's very important. Take time to relax daily. Talk it over, right? You want to confide in a good friend, right? Because those things, the stress of dealing with any teenager, especially those who are experiencing troubled behavior, can take a toll on your health. Believe me. So you want to really find ways to relieve stress, to find space for yourself to relax, right? Now, if you're a single parent, this is very important. If you're a single parent, don't go it alone. You want to find support from family, from a religious leader, as I said earlier, from a sports coach, a school counselor, from friends, right? You have a lot of organizations in the United States, particularly in the areas of counseling, such as Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCA, right? And every state has an agency that deals with abuse, whether it is mental abuse or substance abuse or emotional abuse, all kinds of abuse, right? So it's very important. Take care of yourself. One thing you should also do is to always keep in mind your other children. It's very important. If you have a troubled teen, his or her behavior can unsettle the whole family. But as their behavior, their bad behavior, is affecting negatively your other children, make sure they're not ignored, right? Because siblings need special individual attention or professional help of their own to handle their feelings about the situation, right? Now, once you take care of yourself, you got to learn how to cope with teen violence and anger, right? Now, the thing that's very important here is that if you feel threatened by your teen, it's very important, seek help immediately. Call the police if necessary. Call a friend or relative. It doesn't mean you don't love your child, but your safety and your family's safety should always come first, right? I mean, the thing here is that it's more threatening. It's scarier when it comes to teen boys, because teen boys, they have the testosterone and all the hormones that I was speaking about earlier. When they get angry, they might become very quickly aggressive or violent, making you live in constant fear, right? They can kick doors, throw objects, punch the walls, all that kind of stuff. They might even direct their rage towards you. Now, I'm talking now to single mothers here. Again, if you have a boy you have a teenage boy, and you live in a constantly disturbing and upsetting experience such as this, make sure that you don't live under the threat of violence. All right. Now, how do you cope with teen anger? You can establish boundaries, rules, and consequences. Try to understand the root cause behind the anger. Is your teen depressed? Is it something happening at school? Is it peer pressure? Is it bullying? Right? The thing is that you want to be aware of anger warning signs and triggers, right? For example, is it at a particular time that the teen is angry? Does it have to do with the subject at school, right? Is it because of the class he or she is in? Is it the social entourage that he or she has to cope with, right? Now, another thing you want to do here is that, which is very important, and a lot of professionals have advised this, you want to help your teen find healthy ways to relieve anger, right? If you have boys, just enroll them in a sports club. Let them run, bike, climb, swim, right? Let them engage in team sports, right? You can even buy a punch bag or a pillow so they can punch that, and help relieve tension and anger, right? For teenage girls, you might enroll them in a dance class or creative class such as knitting, embroidery, right? Or dancing. I mean, dancing and playing along to loud, angry music can also provide relief. Whatever you have to do, make sure that you're finding ways to help your teen, deal with anger in a healthy way. One thing that's very important is that allow your teen also to find a place to retreat when he or she is angry. If he or she retreats to her room or his room, don't follow them there. Let them vent, right? Let them vent. Another thing that's very important, and this harks back to what I said earlier in terms of taking care of yourself, is you got to take steps to manage your own anger, right? If you are irate and your child is irate, this sort of ire is just too much. Tensions will just explode, right? So the number one advice, the number one tip that most professionals give is that you, the adult, you, the parents, must always remain calm and balanced no matter how much your child provokes you. right? So, the thing is that if you or other members of your family start screaming, throwing things, hitting each other, your teen ultimately will assume that these are appropriate ways to express, his or her anger as well. Remember, the children learn through parents. They learn through parents' behavior, right? Now, I think it's very important, folks, that we live in an era of global technology. You have the internet, you have movies, you have TV shows that bombard our children with all kinds of stuff. So a child who is exposed to violent TV shows, violent movies, playing with who plays with weapons of any kind, visiting websites that promote or glorify violence, plays violent video games, a child who fantasizes about acts of violence he'd like to commit, a child who is aggressive or cruel to animals or pets in particular. Those are red flags for violent behavior in teens, and you need to take care of them ASAP. Again, either contact a professional, law enforcement, or other members of your family. It's better to do these things sooner rather than later. I'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still talking about the how to deal with the troubled teens here, and I just wanted to let you know that you need to understand and recognize the signs of teen depression, right? So those signs are very clear, and there is extensive literature about that. So problems at school, running away, alcohol and drug abuse, low self-esteem. They have a smartphone addiction. They have reckless behavior such as binge drinking, unsafe sex, reckless driving, violence, which is like I said before, it's usually a male trait, so it's more boys, and the thing is that you have to recognize those signs of teen depression ASAP and start dealing with them. Now, you also want to connect with the troubled teen. It's very important that you want to, while you're trying to connect with your troubled teen, understand your own stress levels, right? You want to be there for your teen. So if you're angry or upset, now is the time to try to communicate with your team. And the thing is, you want to do it at the moment where you both are comfortable and calm and energized, right? So it could be late in the evening, early in the morning. So you engage in that conversation, right? So you're trying to establish a positive framework for face-to-face connection. And again, watch the tone of your voice, right? And the thing here is that when I'm talking about be there for your teen, what I'm trying to say is that try to tell your teen to sit down for meal times together. And when you do this in complete quietness, no phones, no distractions, no TV, no nothing, no music, nothing, right? And try to talk to your teen. Look at your teen when you speak and invite your teen to look at you. You're trying to basically establish a connection here, a chemistry, right? Trying to find common ground, right? The thing here is that it's not about just constantly putting blame, but you're trying to have a conversation. So find common ground, trying to find whatever works. And it's very important here to listen, right? Be a good listener. Don't give advice, don't judge, just listen, right? Don't criticize, don't offer advice, don't interrupt, don't mock, don't judge, right? The thing here is that your teen deep inside wants to feel loved, understood, and valued by you. So you want to maintain eye contact and keep your focus on your child, even if he or she's not looking at you, because imagine your child is talking to you and you're checking your email, you're reading the newspaper. What will he or she think? That's not important to you, or that he or she is not important to you, which is even worse, right? And remember, This is not going to happen overnight that he or she will embrace you. No, there will be a moment of hardship there. So you can expect rejection. You can expect negative reaction. Stay relaxed, chill. Give your teen space to cool off. Right? If there is irritation when you're trying to connect, it's okay. Try another time. Right? Because to connect successfully with your teen, you will need patience and perseverance. Right? These things will take time and effort. All right? Now, another thing I want to talk to you here is that you need to try to balance your troubled teen's life. Now, this is very important because this is we've talked about the problem. We've diagnosed the problem. Now we need to find a permanent solution. Now, before I even get into that, if you love this content so far and you are learning a lot, please consider subscribing to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you can be notified whenever we drop a new show rather. All right, and comment, share, and like this show. We want all parents of the United States, all parents in the United States, and throughout the whole world rather, to get this valuable data, to get this so everybody knows how to deal with the troubled teen, and we avoid those headlines on TV with suicide of teen engaging in rebellious actions, or this will always happen. I'm not being idealistic here. This is not a exotic sort of view of the world, but we can reduce the impact and the rate, right? So try to balance your troubled teen's life. You want to create structure, right? Structure means you have some kind of discipline. You tell them the rules, right? It's like a contract. This is what you are allowed to do. This is what you're not allowed to do. For instance, you can say, dinner and breakfast will be taken together, right? You can watch TV between 8 and 10 p.m. You can, if you go out, you are home by 8 p.m. This kind of curfew rules, like in the military, and you try to explain to your child why those rules must be, why those rules are there in the first place, and why they must be abided by, right? Now, you want to reduce screen time. I talked about it, right? Anything that has to do with movies, internet, TV shows, video games. Those are sources of violent behaviors in teenagers, right? Some TV shows, the violent ones, the violent movies, the violent internet content, right? So those are things that produce some kind of violence in your teen. You want your teen to start exercising. Did you know that we just committed an entire show on the positive impact of regular exercise on depression? And believe me, folks, this works. Regular exercise can help ease depression in your teen, relieve stress, regulate sleep pattern, improve the hormonal imbalance, boost energy and mood. Right? So you want to kind of have you want to sign your child up for some kind of activity. Make sure that they also eat right, because what we're trying to do here is that healthy eating, according to research, can help stabilize a teenager's energy, right? Sharpen their mind and even out their mood. That's what we want to do. And while doing that, make sure that you act as a role model in all aspects for your teen. It's very important. I'm talking about not just eating, not just in terms of diet, but also in terms of how you behave, how you react, how you engage with him or her, right? Make sure that your teen gets enough sleep. Very important, because sleep deprivation also can make a teen lethargic, moody, stressed, irritable, right? And this can cause problems with weight, with decision making, with immunity from illness, with memory, all kinds of metabolic dysfunctions that we call disease. So you want to make sure that you get your teen 8 hours at least, according to doctors, 8 hours of sleep every night. All right. So folks, this is it. We're about to end this conversation, and just kind of recap today's conversation. This was a very quick advice this was quick advice for parents dealing with troubled teens. So I spoke to you about understanding why teens act in a certain way, knowing when standard teen behavior turns into troubled teen behavior, dealing effectively with troubled teens, right? I spoke to you about why it's important to take care of yourself, learn to cope with teen violence and anger, recognize the signs of teen depression, connect with your troubled teen, and try to balance your troubled teen's life. All right. So just to kind of wrap up today's show, here is today's pro tip. Remember, and this is very important, folks, this won't last forever. Right. The pain or turmoil that your teen is experiencing now, if you surround them with your love and support and professional help when it's necessary, that situation will get better for both your teen and yourself. Right. So, your teen, when monitored properly and helped properly, can overcome the problems of adolescence and mature into a happy, comfortable, and well-balanced young adult. I'll see you next time. And until then, stay marvelous.